Hi, Wes Morrow here with CIR Realty. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or a seasoned vet, a real estate transaction presents one of the largest financial decisions that you'll make in your life. It's a journey that's filled with excitement, anticipation, and let's be honest, a little bit of stress. That's why you need the right legal counsel in your corner in order to make sure that the process runs smoothly. That's why we're here today to meet with Max Lebrech at Clark & Clark. He'll give us a little bit of insight as to what he does and answer some common questions that people may have. Let's go in and have a chat. Okay, so before we delve deeper into the world of real estate law here, I'd just like to get to know a little bit more about you. What kind of drew you to real estate law and how long you've been in practice for?
Originally I'm from a beautiful little town called Surrey, Prince Edward Island, the east tip of the island there, and I've been living and working in Calgary now since 2016. Real estate law was actually a major focus of my articles at the firm I was with at the time, and continues to be my kind of major practice area. I was called to the bar in the summer of 2017, and as far as what drew me to real estate law, really, it was what I learned in my undergrad. So I majored in math and economics during my undergrad, and kind of simultaneously tutored math courses and game theory courses. And I find that real estate law is somewhat formulaic in how it's laid out. It's somewhat of a closed system. You have different variables and different possible scenarios that could play out. And our role, kind of like you would do with a formula, is to kind of position and optimize those variables to get a desired result. And I feel, having done thousands of transactions at this point in my career, I've seen most of those scenarios and different variables, and I find I'm pretty well positioned to put them together, according to the contract, the formula, if you would, and optimize the result for the client. So it's kind of what led me to it in the first place.
So have you been with Clark & Clark since you got out of school then? Or?
No, so I actually articled with a mid-sized firm here in the city called Maxwell Law, and got a good base there. They practice a lot of real estate, and I've been with Clark & Clark now for about 4.5 years. I did construction litigation a little bit as well at the start, and kind of saw what could go wrong maybe. Good to have that experience, certainly, to keep my clients out of court now.
And that's your main job, right?
This is it. Yeah, this is it.
So many people have a general idea of what lawyers do, but maybe you can just kind of explain in simple terms, if you can, just a little bit more about what you do, through a transaction.
Yeah, so generally speaking, when you're buying or selling a home, you need a lawyer to safeguard your interest, mitigate the risk, and kind of navigate the complexities of the law with you. We do negotiate for our clients and provide advice so that things go smoothly according to plan, and effectively just make sure that the deal is compliant with the laws, binding on the parties, and flows smoothly. Kind of cut through the legal jargon, make sure the clients understand all the intricacies, and just legal compliance is a big part of our role for sure.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I've liked about your firm here. I know I've dealt with you and Clint as well, and both of you, I feel, are very good at kind of giving it to clients in kind of layman terms to understand, because there's definitely a lot, like you say, that legalese to kind of go through.
Yeah, there's some nuances for sure too.
Yeah. So some people may wonder, do I really need a real estate lawyer? Is there kind of some points that you may be able to make of just why it's so important to have a real estate lawyer?
Yeah, so it's often the biggest transaction somebody can enter into in their life. So it does make good sense to have a legal professional kind of protecting your interests along the way. Also, when you have a mortgage lender on the buy side financing a transaction, or otherwise on the sale side, you have to pay out a mortgage. It's effectively mandated that you do have legal representation based on the undertakings that we can provide to the financial institutions and to opposing counsel to make sure that that stuff gets sorted out. But a lot of money on the line often, so it's very important that your rights are protected and the risk is mitigated. And people have a lot going on, otherwise when they're buying and selling typically. So to have to navigate that process on their own, I expect would be pretty daunting. So
And so you're saying as far as registering the mortgage, so it's mandated, like required by law as far as that?
Yeah, if you don't have legal representation, the lender won't often proceed
okay.
with the mortgage. So again, lawyers can give undertakings, which is a promise with a career on the line effectively. So for instance, when they send mortgage proceeds, the lenders, it's on the undertaking and trust condition that we secure that lender on the title in, say, first place in the commercial priority listing. So yeah, often banks won't work with you unless you have legal representation. So.
Okay. So going into a little bit more depth, can you let me know what you do on the buyer side?
Yeah, for sure. So we review contracts and other legal documents pertinent to the transaction to make sure that, the client understands what they're getting into. If it's pre-signing, we can advise on certain custom terms. If there's any holdbacks or anything like that that need to be negotiated, we can provide some good language to insert there. We review title to make sure that the property is compliant with restrictive covenants and ultimately that the buyer ends up with a clear title without any financial encumbrances. We prepare mortgage documentation and accept instructions from the lender, make sure we process those so that any mortgage financing gets secured against title to the property. We put the seller to any reps and warranties that they've made in the contract. If they've a standard rep and warranty is that no bylaws are offended, for instance, by any improvement that the seller's made. So we make sure we review a real property report and make sure that they're compliant with those reps and warranties. Ultimately, we deliver the funds to counsel for the seller on certain trust conditions, make sure that the property gets paid for on the closing date and that keys are released. And, along the way, explain everything to the client. If there's any issues that pop up, we negotiate on behalf of the client, even after closing, if things go wrong. We're often kind of conversing with opposing counsel on outstanding items after a deal closes.
Yeah, okay. So quite a bit. You were talking about formulas. It's A plus B plus C plus D plus E plus F equals.
There's a few moving parts.
Totally.
You got it. Yeah.
Now, what about on the seller side? Is it much different than the buyer side, or?
A little bit different, right? The main concern that a seller has is that they get paid what they think they're going to get paid without offset on time, and that they don't get, say, sued after closing for breaching a term in the contract. So we kind of provide advice and direction for sellers so that they can have everything organized for closing and ensure it's a smooth closing. We accept cash to close from counsel for the buyer on certain trust conditions, right? We pay out any financial encumbrances that are secured against title for the seller, and again make sure that they get their money on time without offset. And
when do they usually get their money after that? Like, is it pretty instantaneous?
You're right, it is, yeah. And that's part of the benefit of using lawyers is typically there's no holds on our trust checks. Banks can have different policies in that regard, but typically funds are due at 12 noon, and time is of the essence, and there's a clause in most contracts which means strict deadlines can be relied on and enforced. So as soon as we get the money, an hour or two later, it's going to be in the client's account. Hopefully without a hold on it, depending on the bank.
Now, does your firm charge 50 cents for email money transfers or whatever it is? So
$1.50 actually.
Yeah, $1.50.
No, we tend to be pretty open with our fee structures for sure.
Fair enough. So when, as far as timing is concerned, when would you suggest that somebody get in touch with you?
So as early as possible is my recommendation. Oftentimes we don't get involved until you have a binding contract, and then if there are any issues in the contract or things that the client maybe didn't understand fully, it can become an issue on closing. So the earlier the better. And even if you don't get us involved before signing, a lawyer review condition is sometimes a good plan. Just so again we can highlight some of the common pitfalls and some things to keep in mind for closing, so that everybody's organized and we do have a smooth closing.
Okay. There's a lot of choice out there, probably for real estate lawyers. So, what are some things that you would suggest people look for when they're hiring a real estate lawyer?
Yeah, so getting a specialist is really important. Real estate law is pretty nuanced. There's some complexities and procedures that you kind of have to be doing a number of transactions in order to be fully up on, and sometimes we see general practice lawyers that maybe dabble in real estate, and there can be some complications if you don't have a seasoned real estate lawyer kind of guiding you through the process. Also, service level is crucial with a lawyer. I've heard some stories of clients where they go into maybe a stuffy law office, are told to sign here, sign here, sign here, and 10 minutes later they're out the door wondering what happened. So it's important to read the reviews on the online for a given law firm. Gives you a good insight into maybe their culture and level of service that they provide. I'd say price shopping shouldn't be the main focus. You do get what you pay for when hiring a real estate lawyer. So, keep that in mind, certainly.
Speaking of fees, what are the fees? Are they the same for buyers and sellers, or is it a little bit different? Or
it can vary depending on the complexity of a given transaction, and if you're buying or selling, there's a little bit less work for a lawyer on sales side typically. So those a little bit less in fees, but most real estate law firms do have a flat fee structure. On the low end, you see in Calgary around the $700 mark, can get up to the $2,000 range depending on the complexities involved. Any work over and above the standard transaction occurs, but our firm, we have a flat fee kind of policy. If you go on our website, there's actually a real estate closing cost calculator that you can plug in some details, and it'll give you a quote of not only the flat legal fee that you'll pay, but also disbursements, third-party costs incurred on in order to close the deal, land title registration costs, as well as GST. So it gives you the whole picture, so no surprises on closing, which people appreciate.
Yeah, that's great information for sure. So anybody that wants to seek additional information or legal advice or anything like that, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so our website's a great resource, clarklegal.com. You can find kind of our lawyer bios and some good information there. But I'm always available to chat with my clients. Love making myself available if clients do have questions or concerns, either before or after a given transaction. My email is a great way to get me, Max at clarklegal.com, as well as my direct line here at the office is it's 403-777-1407. That's usually the best way. And again, I'm always happy to chat with clients if they do have questions or concerns or need some advice.
And as we wrap up this interview here, in the spirit of sharing a little bit of a wisdom or a fun anecdote, is there anything kind of in your journey that you'd like to, that you've come across that you'd like to kind of impart to people?
Yeah, so real estate law is a highly transactional area of law. It's kind of clients are in the door and out the door. And what I've learned is that, you can make a career based on transactions, but really it's about the relationships that you form. And, getting put before so many clients, in the nature of it, allows me to really establish some good relationships and kind of, so I think that's a good way to take on business, just to focus on the relationship aspect of it.
Excellent. That's probably why we get along so well.
There you go.
Max, thanks a lot for the time today. I really appreciate it. And thanks for giving everybody a little bit more insight into what you do. If anybody wants to get in touch with Max, all the information is below the video here. And if you know of anybody that needs to buy or sell here in the next couple months, don't hesitate to get in touch with me. I'd be happy to help you out. And until then, happy house hunting.